Campaign activities officially started in Ecuador ahead of polls for local authorities and popular consultation on February. In Bolivia, violent groups from the so-called Youth Union of Santa Cruz attacked the police station of the city once again. The United Kingdom's national health system is under emergency status due to a new wave of staff walkouts. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Tuesday in Ecuador, the electoral campaign for local elections and public consultation scheduled for February 5th has officially started. Candidates for prefects, mayors, and urban and rural councillors, together with members of rural parish boards, will be able to disseminate their work, plans, and proposals until February 2nd, when this process will end. In addition, 7 members of the Citizen Participation and Social Control Council will be chosen at the polls. Over 13 million voters will be called to the polls in the country next month to elect 23 prefects, 23 vice prefects, 221 mayors, 864 urban councillors, 443 rural councillors, and 4,109 principal members of the parish councils. On Monday night in Bolivia, violent groups from the so-called Youth Union of Santa Cruz, related to the governor of the department of Santa Cruz, Fernando Camacho, attacked the police station of the city once again. teleSUR correspondent in Bolivia, Freddy Morales, indicated that during the attack on the police headquarters around 9 p.m. local time, the aggressors assaulted a group of people who were participating in a vigil in favor of Governor Camacho. The departmental deputy commander of the police, Colonel Edson Claure, indicated that police officers responded using tear gas to disperse the attackers and to avoid the seizure and burning of the public building. Violent protests in Santa Cruz intensified after the arrest of Camacho, leaving various national and regional public institutions burned or destroyed. On Tuesday in Brazil, the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, attended a ceremony to reopen the building of the Venezuelan embassy in Brasilia. The building had remained closed since the illegal break-in of a group of supporters of Juan Guaidó in 2019. Rodriguez thanked the Brazilian social movements Venezuelans who, harassed by the government of former President Jair Bolsonaro, spent 3 years inside the facilities. The meeting reaffirmed solidarity with the current government headed by President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, in addition to promoting peace, diplomacy, strengthening bilateral cooperation ties, and defending the principles of sovereignty and self-determination of the people. Rodriguez traveled to the neighboring country to participate in the inauguration of Brazil's new president. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning reaffirmed at a press briefing in Beijing on Tuesday that the Asian giant will promote comprehensive strategic partnership with Brazil to a higher level.
Lula da Silva was inaugurated as President of the Federated Republic of Brazil on January 1st, local time. Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message. In his message, President Xi Jinping pointed out that China and Brazil are major developing countries with global influence and important emerging markets. The two countries are comprehensive strategic partners, sharing extensive common interests and shouldering common development responsibilities. Since the establishment of diplomatic ties 48 years ago, bilateral relations have witnessed sustained and in-depth development thanks to joint efforts of both sides, and have grown increasingly mature and dynamic. The China-Brazil relationship has become a model of relations between major developing countries with rich connotations and broad prospects.
The Argentinian government reiterated on Tuesday its sovereignty claim over the Malvinas Islands, South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands, and the surrounding maritime areas on the 190th anniversary of the British occupation of those territories. Through a message published on social media, Casa Rosada and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs reaffirmed the rights of this nation and its unrenounceable objective of recovering the areas usurped by the United Kingdom. On January 3, 1833, the European country legally occupied the Malvinas, expelling the legitimate Argentinian authorities and the population established there and took British subjects. Recently, President Alberto Fernandez pointed out that the British presence in those territories is an attack against Argentina's capacity for self-determination, its integrity, and full disposition over its natural resources. The Prime Minister of Haiti, Ariel Henry, called on Tuesday for national reconciliation regarding the imminent entry into force of a political transition agreement. The Haitian leader called for the union of the sons and daughters of the nation in a new era of change and reconciliation. The agreement, still questioned by certain political and social sectors, institutes a High Council of Transition which will function in parallel to the executive, with representatives of the political parties, the business community, and the civil society. The decree formalizing such structure defines that the High Council will participate in the choosing of the Provisional Electoral Committee members, which will be in charge of organizing the future elections. On Tuesday, Brazilian people joined Pelé's funeral procession, which departed from the Vila Belmiro Stadium and slowly made its way through the streets of the city of Santos. Waving huge black and white flags with messages in honor of Edson Arantes do Nascimento, Brazilians sang the anthem "A Thousand Goals, Only Pelé," to the sounds of drums, kettle drums, and firecrackers. The coffin of the legendary Brazilian football player was transported in a fire truck with policemen dressed in gala on top. The procession will go along the seafront in Santos to the house of Pelé's mother, Celeste Arantes, who has just turned 100 years old. The 24-hour wake for the Brazilian star brought together some 230,000 fans who came to pay tribute to him. Early on Tuesday, the ceremony was attended by Brazil's President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva. Let us take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Monday, the United States Capitol Police Chief warned of possible future attacks on Congress as the second anniversary of the deadly Capitol Hill insurrection approaches. Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger said in an online statement that the current threat climate, particularly against elected officials, require continued and heightened vigilance. He added that with the polarized state of the nation, an attack like the one endured on January 6, 2021 could be attempted again. On that date, thousands of individuals, mostly former President Donald Trump supporters, stormed the Capitol in Washington, D.C. and disrupted a joint session of Congress in the process of affirming the 2020 presidential election results. So far, more than 900 people have been charged with crimes over the Capitol riot. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. flew to China on Tuesday for a 3-day state visit, stating he looks forward to his meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping as they work to boost bilateral ties. Marcos Jr. told officials and diplomats, including the Chinese ambassador, that his visit will open a new chapter in Philippines' comprehensive strategic cooperation with China, alluding to the two countries' territorial dispute in the South China Sea. He said he looks forward to discussing bilateral and regional political and security issues. Marcos said he would seek further clarification when he visits Beijing. Accompanied by a big business delegation, Marcos said they would seek cooperation in various areas, including agriculture, energy, infrastructure, trade and investments, and people-to-people exchanges. He said they expect to sign more than 10 key bilateral agreements during the visit. A German court stated on Monday that the legal actions against the late Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI for allegedly ignoring clerical sexual abuse will continue. The legal action against the Emerite Pope investigates his responsibility in the alleged cover-up of sexual abuses while he served as Archbishop of Munich and Freising in Germany between 1977 and 1982. The spokeswoman of the Court of Traunstein in Bavaria, Andrea Tietz, stated that the case will proceed against any heirs the late pontiff may have, although their existence has not yet been established. The trial seeks to determine whether the man who would later become pope was guilty of covering up sexual abuse, since the abusing priest was transferred to his diocese for therapy. On Tuesday, sectors of the Yellow Vest movements announced the return of their anti-government protests in France with a mobilization on Saturday in Paris. In their call on social media, they asked to reject in the streets the retirement system reform, inflation, and the repeated use by the government of Article 49.3 of the Constitution, which allows the adoption of draft laws without a parliamentary vote. At the moment, the call is to a march in Paris, although demonstrations in other cities are not ruled out. The Yellow Vest put President Emmanuel Macron in check at the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019 with massive protests, which were triggered by the intention to raise the cost of fuel. However, the movement ceased to have prominence in recent years, beyond some isolated actions and attempts to resume it. The United Kingdom's national health system is in crisis, with 13 hospital trusts declaring emergency status at the start of the new year due to a new wave of staff walkouts. Strikes, staff shortages, and rising hospitalizations have raised concerns across the nation. Some of the country's top doctors are warning that the pressure of the national health system is causing avoidable harm to patients. Matthew Taylor, chief executive of the NHS Confederation, warns that the system cannot continue in its current state. Meanwhile, the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is preparing anti-strike legislation that is expected to expand into more sectors this month. On Tuesday, the European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, said the United States Inflation Reduction Act does not respect World Trade Organization rules and penalizes European producers in bilateral trade relations. Borrell stated that the U.S. administration has taken important steps to accelerate the energy transition with the Inflation Reduction Act, but said this legislation is based on a very different philosophy from the one favored by the European bloc. The EU High Representative emphasized the regional union does not want and cannot embark in a competitive fight based on public subsidies because it would harm the world economy. The IRA was signed by U.S. President Joe Biden in August 2022. As from January 1, 2023, it offers U.S. citizens tax credits for buying electric vehicles assembled in the country. On Tuesday, the United States National Weather Service announced that the country will face a new wave of winter storms during the first week of 2023 that will possibly bring heavy snowfalls and tornadoes. The entity reported that 16 states are under winter warnings, while the storm is forecast to move from the so-called Four Corners, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, to the Central Plains such as Texas, Kansas, and Nebraska. Meanwhile, specialized sources confirmed that by Wednesday, most of the East Coast will be under a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Local media confirmed that more than 19 million people are at risk due to these atmospheric phenomena. An example of this was the strong winter storm Elliott that left 65 fatalities. We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh reacted on Tuesday to ultranationalist Israeli cabinet minister's visit to a flashpoint in Jerusalem holy site. It is the first visit by Israel National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir since he took office in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's new ultra-right-wing government last week. The visit, which is considered a provocation by the Palestinians, drew fierce condemnation from across the Muslim world. Ben-Gvir entered the Jerusalem site known to Jews as the Temple Mount and to Muslims as the Noble Sanctuary. The Palestinian Prime Minister called it a grave challenge to the emotions of the Palestinian people and a violation of all norms, values, agreements, international laws, and Israel's commitments. The Iranian people commemorate on Tuesday Lieutenant General Qasem Soleimani, who was killed 3 years ago by a U.S. drone strike near Baghdad International Airport. Speaking at a ceremony to mark the third anniversary of the assassination, President Ebrahim Raisi emphasized that the people and the government of Iran will never forget the bloodshed by General Soleimani and will take retaliation on the United States for the crime. People gathered in the southeastern city of Kerman, General Soleimani's hometown, to pay tribute to the iconic commander. Similar ceremonies were also held in the Iranian capital Tehran and other cities, including Esfahan, Yazd, Birjan, Rasht, Sharq el-Khord, and Arak. On Tuesday, Nigerian authorities confirmed that 4 security officials were killed in a car bombing targeting a former government official in the southeastern area of the country. In Imo State, the bomb attack on a convoy carrying former Governor Ikedi Ohakim left 3 policemen and a parliamentary dead, Police Commissioner Mohamed Barb said. The attack was an unfortunate setback to the government's efforts to restore peace in some of Nigeria's strife-torn southeastern states. In recent years, southeastern Nigeria has seen an increase in violent attacks, often blamed on separatists trying to break away from the West African nation to form an independent country. The attack has raised fears among local residents who are afraid that security will be threatened in the area during the country's presidential election in February. On Monday, Burkina Faso reported the finding of 28 bodies over the weekend in the northern province of Nuna. According to a government statement, on December 30th and 31st, there was an incident at Nuna province and an investigation is underway. Attacks targeting security forces and civilians have increased in recent months, especially in northern and eastern regions bordering Mali and Niger, which are battling armed groups. A civil society group blamed the killings on armed civilians claiming to be members of a government-backed volunteer force fighting jihadists. The military seized power in Burkina Faso last January, promising an end to attacks, but the violence still rages. Mao Ning said that China firmly opposed the attempts to manipulate epidemic prevention and control measures to achieve political goals in response to the entry restrictions for passengers arriving from China imposed by some countries.
We appreciate that many countries responded warmly to the interim measures for the international exchange of Chinese and foreigners issued by China. We will continue to optimize and adjust the prevention and control measures in light of the epidemic situation and provide better conditions for the safe, healthy, and orderly travels of Chinese and foreign personnel, so as to better guarantee international exchanges and cooperation. We are willing to strengthen communication and work together with the international community to overwhelm the pandemic. At the same time, we believe that some countries' entry restrictions targeting only China lack scientific basis and some excessive measures are unacceptable. We firmly oppose the attempts to manipulate epidemic prevention and control measures to achieve.
The European Union on Tuesday offered China help to deal with its COVID-19 emergency, including the donation of vaccines.
What I can tell you is that in view of the COVID situation in China, Commissioner Kyriakides has reached out to her Chinese counterparts to offer the EU's solidarity and support, and this includes public health expertise as well as through variant-adapted EU vaccine donations.
We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.